The human walked carefully, his boots echoing softly against the smooth metal floor of the alien facility. Red lights flashed along the walls, warning signs in shapes he didn't recognize glowing ominously. Every step he took made him more aware of the danger he was in, yet curiosity pushed him forward. He had been warned, over and over again, by his superiors and by his instincts. But nothing could stop him now. This place was unlike anything humans had ever seen, and the temptation to explore, to discover, was too strong. The air smelled faintly of ozone and something sweet, a scent that made his skin crawl in the back of his neck. There was a hum in the walls, almost like the building was alive, and it followed him, a constant reminder that he was an intruder in a world that was not his own. As he moved deeper, the hallway widened into a chamber filled with glowing crystals that pulsed with strange energy. The light was mesmerizing, but it also made shadows dance across the walls in ways that were unsettling. He took a careful step forward, hand reaching out to touch one of the crystals. The moment his fingers brushed its surface, a surge of energy ran up his arm, and he stumbled back. The walls vibrated slightly, and a deep, resonant voice echoed through the chamber. "Insolent human!" it thundered, making his ears ring. He froze. "You dare enter the wrong place?" The sound came from everywhere at once, yet he couldn't see its source. Panic clawed at his chest, but he tried to stay calm. He knew this was not a regular security system. This was intelligence, power, and fury combined. And it was watching him. He looked around frantically, heart pounding, trying to find the source. Then, from above, a figure appeared, descending with a grace that seemed impossible. Her skin shimmered faintly, almost as if it were made of liquid metal. Her eyes glowed a sharp amber, piercing through the dim light, and she regarded him with a mixture of disdain and curiosity. The human's breath caught in his throat. He had expected alarms, perhaps a robot security force, but not this. Not her. "You do not belong here," she said, her voice low now, carrying a quiet menace that made his spine stiffen. "This place is forbidden. Every step you have taken is a violation." He opened his mouth to speak, to explain, but the words caught in his throat. It was clear that she did not want to hear explanations. She moved closer, and the room seemed to shrink around him, the crystal's glow now casting long, jagged shadows that danced like ghosts. The human realized how small he was, how fragile, standing in the presence of someone who could end him in an instant. He had trespassed into a world governed by rules he did not understand, and that mistake could cost him everything. He tried to step back, but the floor seemed different now, almost alive. The hum he had noticed earlier grew louder, vibrating through his bones. Each pulse made the air around him crackle faintly. "Do you understand what you have done?" she asked, and her tone carried a weight he could feel pressing against his chest. The human swallowed hard. He wanted to nod, to say yes, but fear had frozen him. He could feel his heart hammering, as if it were trying to escape. I did not mean to," he began, but she interrupted with a sharp gesture. A barrier of shimmering energy sprang up between them, forcing him to halt mid-step. The light was blinding, and when he shielded his eyes, the figure in front of him seemed to grow larger, more imposing. "Your curiosity is dangerous," she said. "It could destroy not only you but everything this facility protects." He took a cautious breath, trying to steady himself, but every instinct screamed at him to run. Yet, something deeper, something reckless in his nature, made him hesitate. He wanted to see, to understand, to reach beyond the limits humans had always known. The room shifted subtly, almost imperceptibly, as if it were alive and reacting to his thoughts. He noticed then that the crystals were aligned in a pattern, humming in unison, their light growing brighter and more intense. The air around him grew thick, charged with energy that made the hairs on his arms stand on end. He realized, with a shock, that this was no ordinary facility. It was a living network, a labyrinth of power and knowledge, and he had just stumbled into its heart. Every instinct he had screamed at him to leave, but the pull of discovery held him rooted in place. Then she spoke again, and the words cut through him like a blade. Few humans dare enter here. Fewer survive. You are not ready. Her gaze locked on his, and in that moment, he felt as though she could see every thought, every fear, every hope he had. The realization was terrifying. He was exposed in ways he had never imagined, vulnerable to a mind that was not only alien but incomprehensibly advanced. Yet, beneath the fear, a spark of defiance ignited. Humans were survivors, explorers, thinkers. He would not go down without understanding, without learning what secrets this place held. But before he could move, before he could even think of a plan, the ground beneath him shivered. The crystals flared, sending beams of light shooting across the walls, and a deep vibration ran through the chamber. She raised a hand, and the light intensified, surrounding him in a cage of energy. "You have trespassed," she said, voice low and deadly. "And now, you must face the consequences." He could hear the power in her words, feel it pressing against him like a physical weight. And in that moment, he understood. This was no ordinary encounter. He was standing at the edge of something far greater than himself, something that could change everything he thought he knew about the universe. Fear and curiosity warred within him. The human's mind raced, heart pounding as he considered his next move. To flee was instinct. To stay was madness. Yet, he knew one thing with terrifying clarity. Whatever happened next, nothing would ever be the same again. The mistress was watching, waiting, and he had no choice but to follow the path he had foolishly chosen, the path into the heart of the forbidden. The human's chest heaved as he stared at the glowing figure before him. The mistress's eyes burned into his, sharp and unforgiving, as if she could read every hidden thought in his mind. The energy cage around him pulsed with a rhythm that matched his racing heartbeat, making him feel trapped not only physically but mentally. He had expected anger, perhaps a stern warning, but not this. This was pure, intelligent fury, a force that made him feel insignificant and exposed. He swallowed hard, trying to steady his shaking hands, but every breath reminded him of how vulnerable he was in this alien world. "You are reckless," the mistress said, her voice calm but deadly, like a storm held in check. "You have entered the sacred chamber without permission. Do you understand the gravity of what you have done?" The human's mouth opened, then closed. Words failed him. How could he explain curiosity in the face of such overwhelming power? How could he make her understand that he meant no harm, that he sought only knowledge? But he knew, deep down, that no words could undo the trespass he had committed. She had already judged him, and in her judgment, he felt the weight of an entire civilization's rules pressing down. The human took a cautious step back, testing the boundaries of the energy cage. Sparks danced along the shimmering walls, forming intricate patterns he could not comprehend. Every motion sent ripples through the air, and he realized that the chamber itself was alive, responding to the mistress's will and perhaps even to his thoughts. "Why are you here, human?" she demanded, tilting her head slightly as if weighing his very soul. He swallowed again, the taste of fear bitter on his tongue. I want to learn," he said finally, his voice trembling. "I want to understand your world." Her laugh was soft but carried an edge that cut through the tension like a blade. "Understand," she echoed. "You know nothing of what you have stumbled upon. This is not a place for the curious. This is a place for the disciplined, the prepared, the worthy. And yet, here you are, defying all caution and reason." Her gaze softened for a fraction of a second, almost curious, but the warning in her tone was unmistakable. He felt both dread and fascination at the same time. There was intelligence here beyond his comprehension, a mind so vast and precise that it made his own seem fragile. Then, with a fluid motion, she stepped closer, and the cage of energy shrank slightly, forcing him to confront her directly. The human noticed now the fine details of her form, the metallic shimmer of her skin, the faint pulsating lines that ran like circuitry across her arms, and the glowing patterns etched into the floor beneath her feet. Every detail spoke of power and precision, a civilization that had mastered both energy and control. He felt the weight of his trespass more keenly than ever. One wrong move, one misstep, and he would be crushed, physically, mentally, or both. "You cannot proceed without understanding the cost," the mistress said, raising her hand. The crystals along the walls pulsed violently, sending beams of light that carved through the room, illuminating the human in harsh white and gold. The energy felt tangible, almost solid, as if the very air had hardened around him. He could see tiny sparks brushing against his skin, causing small burns where the energy touched. Pain mingled with awe as he realized the full magnitude of her control. "This is not a threat," she continued, "but a lesson. You must learn quickly, or you will not survive what lies ahead." The human's mind raced. Lessons? Survival? He had come for knowledge, and now he wondered if he would even live long enough to take a single step forward. Yet, a spark of defiance, stubborn and unyielding, flickered in him. Humans survived against odds far greater than this, had conquered environments far harsher, and had adapted to threats far deadlier. He would not cower completely. He would learn, even if it meant risking everything. Suddenly, the air shifted. A low hum rose from the crystals, harmonizing with the mistress's own rhythm. The floor beneath him vibrated, and the walls seemed to breathe, expanding and contracting subtly. He realized then that this facility was not only alive, it was aware, responding to both its guardian and the intruder. The mistress's gaze sharpened, as if sensing the realization forming in his mind. "Yes," she said softly, almost to herself. "You notice. But noticing is not enough. Understanding, that is earned." She raised both hands, and the energy cage contracted, lifting him slightly off the ground. Fear and awe mingled in his chest. Every instinct screamed to resist, to fight, to escape, but he found he could not. Her power was absolute, a force that bent physics and will alike. "You have trespassed," she repeated, her voice now calm but charged with finality. "You will either submit to the knowledge you do not yet comprehend, or you will be consumed by your own ignorance." The human's mind spun. Submit. Consume? He felt the pressure of her judgment pressing down, but beneath it, he sensed a path forward, a slim, narrow path that demanded intelligence, courage, and instinct. He would have to navigate her tests carefully, prove his worth without knowing exactly what she sought. Every move would matter. Every thought, every hesitation, could decide whether he lived or became another cautionary tale in this alien chamber. As the crystal's glow reached a crescendo, bathing the chamber in blinding light, the mistress stepped back slightly, releasing him from the immediate weight of the energy. He dropped to the floor with a soft thud, gasping for air, but he knew the moment of reprieve was temporary. She was still watching, still judging, still calculating his every potential misstep. The human rose slowly, muscles tense, mind racing. He had entered a world far beyond his understanding, faced a force that could annihilate him in seconds, and yet, somehow, he had survived the first encounter. And in that survival, he found the faintest spark of hope. A spark that whispered, knowledge, power, discovery. But also danger, deep, incomprehensible, and alive. The human moved cautiously, every step echoing in the chamber like a drumbeat of fate. The glow from the crystals had dimmed slightly, leaving shadows that crept along the walls and floor, twisting in shapes that seemed almost alive. He could still feel the mistress's presence, a force that hovered over him like a storm cloud, judging his every movement, waiting for a misstep. The energy cage had receded, but the weight of her gaze pressed on him, a constant reminder that he was far from safe. His heart pounded in his chest, but curiosity, stubborn and insistent, refused to be silenced. He had come here to uncover the forbidden secrets, and nothing, not fear, not death, would stop him from seeing them. The chamber opened into a wider hall, its ceiling arched high, lined with pillars that pulsed faintly with the same strange energy as the crystals. At the far end, a large circular portal glimmered, its surface rippling like liquid metal. The human's breath caught. He had read about portals in theory, but to see one in person, alive and humming with energy, was almost unbearable. Every instinct screamed at him to stop, to turn and flee while he could, but the pull was irresistible. The mistress had not yet spoken, yet he felt her awareness even here. as if she could read his mind and anticipate his every thought. He stepped closer to the portal, noting the faint inscriptions along its edge. Symbols that twisted and shifted, almost as if they were alive, warning him and tempting him at the same time. "You wish to see," the mistress said, her voice echoing softly through the hall, calm yet powerful. The human jumped slightly, realizing she had moved silently behind him, her presence inescapable. "You do not understand what lies beyond," she continued. "Few beings are capable of facing it, and even fewer survive the encounter unbroken." The human swallowed hard. The air around the portal vibrated subtly, a low hum that resonated through his bones. He felt the pull of something immense on the other side, a presence that was both terrifying and magnificent. He wanted to step back, to refuse, but his feet betrayed him, moving closer against his will. As he studied the portal, he noticed the energy seemed to respond to him, shifting as though aware of his thoughts, his intentions. His reflection appeared briefly on the liquid surface, distorted and stretched, reminding him how small and fragile he was in this alien world. Then, the portal shimmered and widened, revealing a glimpse of what lay beyond. A swirling vortex of light and shadow, a space that defied gravity and reason, filled with energy that made the hair on his arms rise. His mind strained to comprehend it, to find any familiar reference, but the patterns were utterly alien, incomprehensible. The very air seemed charged with a power that could tear reality apart, and he realized the full danger of the Forbidden Orifice. "You are reckless," the mistress said again, her voice closer now, a whisper that carried through the hall and into his mind. "Do you think this is a place for the unprepared? You have crossed boundaries that your kind was never meant to cross. And yet—" She paused, tilting her head, a faint curiosity creeping into her tone. "There is something in you. A spark. Perhaps that is why you are still here." The human's pulse quickened. The slightest hint of recognition, of possibility, flickered in her words, but the danger remained absolute. One wrong thought, one wrong movement, and the power of the orifice could consume him entirely. He took a cautious step forward, his hand hovering near the portal's surface. Energy rippled beneath his fingers without touching him, a warning and an invitation at once. The mistress watched silently, her presence like a weight pressing down from above. "The orifice," she finally said, her voice a low hum, "is not merely a passage. It is a test, a reflection of intent and understanding. Few can survive its gaze. Fewer still can leave it unchanged." He swallowed, mind racing. A test. A reflection. The words offered no comfort, only more questions. And yet, he felt a strange compulsion, a pull he could not resist, to step closer, to confront whatever lay within the forbidden portal. Suddenly, the air shimmered violently, and the surface of the orifice twisted as if sensing his hesitation. The room filled with a soft, almost musical hum that resonated through his chest. Shadows shifted in impossible ways, bending reality, making the floor seem to ripple beneath his feet. His heart pounded as he realized the portal was reacting to him personally, aware of his mind, his fears, and his curiosity. It was not just a machine or a gate. It was alive in a way he could barely comprehend, and he felt the first true weight of the mistress's warning. "You will learn," she said, voice low but carrying across the chamber, "that knowledge comes at a price. Curiosity is not a gift, it is a test of endurance, courage, and the mind. And the orifice," she stepped closer, eyes glowing, "will demand everything you are willing to give. Are you prepared to face it?" The human hesitated. Every nerve screamed to turn back, but the pull of discovery, of something beyond human understanding, was irresistible. He nodded, more to himself than to her, committing fully to the path he had chosen. The moment he stepped closer, the portal flared, sending waves of light and energy across the room. Shadows danced violently, and the human felt the air thicken, pressing against him, almost alive. The crystals along the walls pulsed in sync, casting brilliant streaks of light that made the chamber feel like it had shifted into another dimension entirely. The human realized with both fear and awe that the orifice was more than a doorway. It was a living test, a challenge designed to push anyone who entered to the limits of mind, body, and courage. And as he reached out to touch the surface, the mistress's eyes bore into him, watching, judging, waiting. He felt a shiver of anticipation and dread. He was standing on the edge of knowledge that few had ever glimpsed, about to confront the forbidden, about to see truths that could change everything he thought he knew. And in that moment, he understood the gravity of his trespass. This was no simple violation. This was a journey into the heart of a force far beyond human reckoning, a force that could either reveal the universe or destroy him. The human's hand hovered just above the surface of the portal, feeling the faint pulse of energy beneath his fingers. It was alive, responsive, almost sentient, and every instinct screamed at him to pull away. Yet, the pull of discovery, the spark of curiosity that had driven him here, was too strong. He looked up and saw the mistress standing a few paces away, her arms crossed, eyes glowing softly with a mixture of judgment and intrigue. She had not intervened yet, but the sheer presence of her power was enough to make the human's skin crawl. He realized then that she was testing him, watching every thought, every hesitation, every flicker of doubt. "You are reckless," she said again, though there was a subtle undertone now, almost curiosity. "Few would dare approach the orifice after witnessing its power. Most flee in fear, yet you linger. Why?" The human swallowed hard. His voice was steady, but his chest heaved with tension. "Because I need to understand," he admitted. "Because I need to know what lies beyond. Humans survive by learning, by seeing the impossible and understanding it. I won't turn away." For a moment, she said nothing. The room seemed to hold its breath, the crystals along the walls dimming slightly as if awaiting her decision. Then, with a subtle motion of her hand, the portal's surface rippled, forming a temporary pathway of glowing light. "Perhaps there is potential in your kind," she said softly. "Potential to survive the orifice, to comprehend that which it guards. But you must earn it. Survival alone is not enough. You must prove your mind, your courage, your worth." Her words carried a promise and a warning, and the human felt both thrill and dread at the same time. He stepped cautiously onto the glowing path, every nerve alert, every sense heightened. The portal hummed beneath his feet, the light surrounding him like a cage that was both protective and threatening. He could feel the mistress's gaze on him, piercing, analyzing, judging. He wanted to speak, to ask what he was supposed to do, but fear held him silent. One wrong move could mean the end. One hesitation could trigger a reaction he could not survive. And yet, moving forward was the only choice. Knowledge and survival were intertwined, and he would risk everything to grasp even a fraction of it. As he advanced, the portal shifted, displaying visions of other worlds, strange energies, and impossible structures that defied logic. His mind strained to comprehend them. Colors that did not exist in human vision flashed before his eyes. Sounds vibrated in his bones. The energy made his skin tingle, a constant reminder that he was not in a normal environment, that every step was a test. And through it all, the mistress's presence remained, constant and overwhelming. She did not guide him, did not intervene, but her influence was unmistakable. She was both guardian and observer, measuring his every reaction. "You have curiosity," she said finally, her voice echoing softly in his mind. "But curiosity alone will not carry you through what comes next. You must adapt, anticipate, and understand beyond instinct. Humans are clever, but cleverness alone will not suffice here." The human's pulse quickened. The challenge she laid before him was clear. He was not merely trespassing. He was being tested, trained, perhaps even judged for what lay ahead. And in the back of his mind, he realized the stakes were higher than survival. Success could grant knowledge beyond imagination. Failure, well, he dared not think about it. The light beneath his feet shifted again, forming intricate pathways, some leading forward, some closing abruptly. He had to think, to act carefully, to choose his steps wisely. Every decision mattered. His heart pounded, and sweat ran down his temples, but he forced himself to focus. Humans had survived far greater dangers by using intellect, strategy, and resilience. He would rely on these traits now more than ever. Suddenly, a burst of energy shot up from the portal, forcing him to leap aside. The crystals flared, casting long shadows across the chamber. He landed on the glowing pathway with a soft thud, feeling the heat and pressure of the energy on his skin. It was a harsh reminder that the orifice was not passive. It tested him, provoked him, challenged him. And the mistress, standing a few meters away, watched silently, as if approving the small victory of his survival. "You are learning," she said softly. "But learning alone is not enough. To proceed, you must form an understanding. You must adapt not only to what you see but to what you feel, to what the orifice demands." The human nodded, breathing heavily, mind racing. He realized that the mistress was offering him something dangerous yet invaluable, an alliance. He was still a trespasser, still unprepared, but she had chosen to test him further rather than destroy him outright. It was a chance, one that humans rarely received in alien worlds. And in that moment, he knew that survival required more than courage. It required trust, observation, and the willingness to follow the mistress's subtle guidance without question. The portal shifted again, forming a glowing corridor that led deeper into the heart of the chamber. The human stepped forward, feeling the energy around him respond to his movements. Shadows danced across the walls, and strange whispers echoed faintly in the air, almost like voices just beyond comprehension. He felt the weight of the mistress's gaze, the immense intelligence behind her eyes, guiding, testing, judging. The alliance was dangerous, yes, but it was his only chance to survive the trials of the orifice. And so, with each step, he committed fully to the path, understanding that every action, every thought, every breath would be scrutinized, and that failure could be fatal. As the corridor stretched onward, glowing with shifting light and energy, the human realized the true nature of his challenge. This was no ordinary portal. This was a test of mind, courage, and resilience. And the mistress, his enigmatic observer, judge, and possible ally, would not allow him a single mistake. He was on the edge of discovery, walking a path few humans had ever seen, and the danger was absolute. Yet, despite the fear, despite the overwhelming odds, a spark of determination burned in him. He would survive. He would endure. And, if he succeeded, he would emerge changed, stronger, wiser, and carrying knowledge that could alter everything he thought he knew about the universe. The human steps echoed softly in the glowing corridor, each movement carefully measured, every sense stretched to its limit. The energy from the portal shifted around him, a living, responsive force that seemed aware of his intentions. It pulsed and flowed beneath his feet, wrapping the air in a subtle hum that resonated through his bones. Shadows danced along the walls, forming shapes that defied logic, shapes that whispered secrets he could not yet understand. He felt the mistress behind him, her presence a constant weight that pressed on him like gravity. She did not speak, but her gaze was unmistakable, tracking every motion, weighing every thought. The air was thick with anticipation, and he knew that each second could tip the balance between revelation and disaster. As he advanced, the corridor widened into a vast chamber, its ceiling lost in darkness, dotted with floating shards of energy that rotated slowly, casting streaks of light across the floor. At the center, the forbidden orifice expanded, its surface rippling like liquid silver, alive and aware. The human stopped, awe and fear gripping him at once. The mistress's voice, calm yet sharp, echoed in the chamber. "This is the heart of the orifice. Few have seen it and lived to speak. Few have understood its purpose. You must proceed carefully. One misstep, and everything will end." He swallowed hard, realizing the full magnitude of what he faced. Knowledge and danger were entwined here, inseparable, and he was standing in the very eye of it. The orifice pulsed, and images flashed across its surface. Distant worlds, strange civilizations, energies that defied comprehension, and possibilities that stretched beyond the human mind. Each vision struck him with wonder and terror, and he felt the weight of understanding pressing on his brain. He had glimpsed parts of alien knowledge before, but this was entirely different. It was alive, aware, and it was testing him, pushing him to the limits of his perception. His heart raced as he realized that the portal was not a tool but a living challenge, demanding intelligence, courage, and insight. "You are learning," the mistress said, her voice a soft hum that seemed to vibrate in his chest. "But learning is not enough. Understanding comes at a cost, and the orifice will reveal truths that may break your mind if you are not prepared. Humans are clever, yes, but cleverness alone will not survive this." The human nodded, though fear twisted his stomach. He felt the energy around him, a living entity, probing, assessing, and reacting to his presence. Every instinct screamed to retreat, to run, to abandon the path he had foolishly chosen, but curiosity and determination held him fast. He had come too far to turn back now. A sudden surge of energy shot from the orifice, forcing him to step back, but even as he moved, he felt the pull, the undeniable attraction of knowledge and power. Visions of alien cities, unimaginable technologies, and forces that shaped galaxies flashed before his eyes. He gasped, his mind straining to comprehend the scale of what lay before him. The mistress moved closer, her presence overwhelming, yet she made no gesture to stop him. "Observe," she said softly. "The orifice shows what you may become, and what you may lose. Every choice matters. Every thought shapes your path." The human's eyes widened as he saw a vision of himself interacting with the orifice, his actions influencing realities he could barely grasp. The sense of power was intoxicating, but the danger was immediate and pressing. A wrong thought, a misstep in understanding, could cause the energy to lash out, to crush him, to erase his mind. The chamber seemed to pulse in response to his focus, as if the orifice were alive and aware of his internal struggle. He clenched his fists, forcing himself to breathe, to focus, to find clarity amidst the overwhelming sensory assault. Then, amid the flashing visions, he saw it, a potential exit, a path to escape with knowledge that could change everything. But the way was treacherous, lined with energy pulses and shifting barriers that demanded precision and courage. The mistress's voice broke through his concentration. "You may leave with knowledge, or you may stay and be changed forever. The choice is yours, but understand this, the orifice does not forgive hesitation." He hesitated, heart hammering, mind racing. To flee was instinct. To stay and face the unknown was courage, or madness. Yet, he felt a strange calm beneath the fear, a resolve that only humans, stubborn and daring, could muster. He took a careful step forward, testing the energy pulses, noting their rhythm and response. The orifice shifted, almost as if acknowledging his intent, the glowing surface bending to create a narrow corridor. He moved swiftly, every movement precise, every thought concentrated on survival and understanding. Shadows flickered along the walls, forming shapes that whispered secrets he could not fully grasp, but he pressed onward, driven by determination. The mistress followed silently, her gaze unwavering, as if measuring every action, every heartbeat. The final surge of energy came without warning, a wave that struck him squarely, sending a shiver through his body. He stumbled but caught himself, heart racing, breath ragged. The orifice pulsed violently, as if testing his resolve one final time. And then, just as suddenly, the energy subsided, leaving him standing in a narrow chamber at the other side. He had made it. For the first time, the human allowed himself to breathe, though fear still lingered. He had survived, and in doing so, he had glimpsed knowledge beyond human comprehension. The mistress's voice softened, almost approving. "You have endured what few could. But know this, knowledge is never without cost. You have taken a step that will change you forever, and the path ahead is still uncertain. Remember what you have seen, and prepare, for the orifice is only the beginning." The human nodded, understanding the gravity of her words. He had survived the trial, faced the unknown, and learned a fragment of the truth. But the journey was far from over, and the danger, and the knowledge, waited still, stretching ahead into realms he could barely imagine. And as he glanced back at the rippling surface of the orifice, he realized one thing with absolute clarity: survival was no longer enough. To endure what lay ahead, to uncover the secrets fully, he would have to adapt, think beyond human limits, and embrace the impossible. The path of discovery had begun, and there was no turning back. The human stepped forward from the narrow chamber, the glow of the forbidden orifice fading behind him, yet its pulse still lingered in his veins. Every nerve in his body thrummed with the memory of its energy, the whispers of possibilities he could barely comprehend. He had faced visions that defied human logic, confronted truths that could have broken his mind, and yet, here he stood, alive, alert, and transformed. The mistress watched him silently, her form radiant with quiet power, yet her expression unreadable. He knew that she could sense every thought, every fleeting doubt, and every shred of courage he carried. Her judgment had followed him through the entire trial, and now, at the conclusion, he felt the immense weight of it pressing upon him. "You have endured," the mistress said, her voice calm but commanding, resonating through the chamber. "Few humans would have survived the orifice. Fewer still would have understood even a fraction of what it revealed. You have strength, curiosity, and cunning. These are traits that define your species, traits I did not expect to find in one who trespassed so boldly." The human's chest heaved, but he held his head high. Her words were both praise and a warning, a reminder that survival had not made him safe. He realized that the knowledge he carried was dangerous, not only to himself but potentially to the world he came from. She stepped closer, the energy around her shifting subtly, responding to her presence. "The orifice tests more than courage," she continued. "It tests morality, intellect, and the capacity to act in the face of overwhelming uncertainty. You have proven capable, yet the final lesson remains. Knowledge is never neutral. It is power, and power demands responsibility." The human nodded, understanding the gravity of her words. He had glimpsed civilizations, energies, and possibilities that humans were not yet prepared to wield. To leave untested, untrained, would have been catastrophic. But he had endured, and he had survived, not merely by strength, but by understanding and instinct. The chamber began to shift around him, the walls of energy bending and stretching as if acknowledging his progress. The mistress raised her hand, and the portal shimmered once more, revealing a corridor that led to the edge of the facility. The human took a cautious step forward, feeling the weight of his journey behind him and the unknown ahead. He realized that the orifice had not only tested him but had subtly changed him, sharpening his mind, heightening his awareness, and teaching him truths that would shape his future actions. Every instinct, every decision, had been honed under the watchful eye of the mistress and the living energy of the orifice. "You may leave," the mistress said softly, her gaze piercing. "But know this, what you carry is no ordinary knowledge. It is a seed of power. How you choose to use it will determine not only your fate but the fate of those who follow you. Do you understand the responsibility you bear?" The human swallowed hard. Yes, he understood. Humans were survivors, explorers, and thinkers. But this knowledge was beyond mere survival. It was a force that could reshape destinies, challenge civilizations, and rewrite the rules of existence. The weight of it pressed on him, yet he did not falter. As he stepped forward, the corridor of energy shifting beneath his feet, the human realized that the mistress had not only been a guardian but a teacher. Her wrath, her judgment, her presence, all had been part of the crucible that had tested his mind and spirit. He felt gratitude, tempered by the awareness of danger. She had given him a chance few humans would ever receive, and he had survived through a combination of wit, courage, and intuition. The chamber seemed to acknowledge this, the crystals along the walls pulsing in a steady rhythm, almost like a heartbeat, as if the orifice itself recognized his triumph. And yet, the journey was not complete. Outside the facility, the universe awaited, vast and unknowable, filled with threats and opportunities alike. The human had seen only a fragment of the power he now carried. The mistress's final words lingered in his mind: "Knowledge is power, and power demands responsibility." He had survived, yes, but survival was not the end. It was the beginning of a path that could change everything. He emerged from the facility into the alien night, the stars above shining with brilliance that felt sharper, more immediate than any he had known. The wind, or what passed for wind in this world, rushed past him, carrying a whisper of energy from the orifice, a reminder that the test was over, but the consequences had only begun. He looked back, expecting to see the mistress, but she was gone, leaving only the faint hum of power that lingered in the air. He knew she was watching still, unseen, monitoring, waiting for the next chapter to unfold. The human clenched his fists, a spark of determination burning in his chest. He had survived the orifice, faced an intelligence beyond comprehension, and emerged with knowledge that could redefine humanity's place in the galaxy. And he knew one absolute truth: the universe would never see humans the same way again. He was no longer merely a trespasser. He was a messenger, a survivor, a bearer of forbidden truths. And with every step he took away from the chamber, he carried the power of the orifice within him, a seed of possibility, a weapon of insight, and a spark of humanity's unstoppable drive to endure, to explore, and to triumph. The stars stretched endlessly before him, alive with promise and danger. And somewhere, deep within the folds of space, the mistress watched, waiting, knowing that the human had passed the test. Not because he had been the strongest, the fastest, or the cleverest, but because he had endured, adapted, and survived. Humanity had struck, not with force, but with courage, wit, and resilience. And the universe would remember this encounter for all time.